Cheers, fam. Happy Monday. It's your girl, Natalie, the Keto Bikini Pro, and it is time for another Monday Masterclass with Coach Nat. I see Bubbles is on. I'm glad you were able to get on. Yay. I don't see the chat as much as usual, so hopefully all is working well. Shoot me a quick comment if you're here watching and able to join the live stream. Awesome. Yay, Becky's there. Woohoo. Okay, cool. Things are working. Yay. All right. So tonight is kicking off the month of May, which I said was going to be a lot on the mindset, mental and emotional side of this health and wellness journey, health and fitness journey. So tonight we are talking about a topic that, at least by name, many of you are not familiar with. That reminds me, I need to pull up the Facebook comments and make sure I haven't missed any questions that have come in. I saw the initial comments saying, I'm not familiar with this at all. I've never heard of it. A lot of people not familiar with the term somatics or somatic experiencing, somatic movement, somatic training. So we're going to get into definitions tonight. I suspect that once you understand what it is, you have some sort of experience with it. So let's see. Let's pull up the group here. There we go. Okay. Let's find the thread. There we go. There it is. Okay. Yep. Let's see. Can't wait to hear more about it. I've seen a lot of posts on various social media, but don't know much about it. Extremely interested in learning more and the benefits of incorporating it into my lifting protocol. Not familiar, looking forward to learning about it. Funny, this has just been flooding my feed lately. Excited to learn more about it. Never heard of it. Looking forward to this. I've not a clue. I know nothing about this. Looking forward to learning. So many people saying the same thing, basically. Everybody's interested. Not that many people are familiar with it. Cynthia did some research. She said it looks interesting. I will incorporate a few practices as pre-workout when I do my morning grounding, Wim Hof breathing, and sprinting up our hill in the mornings. In many ways, as we'll talk about tonight, all of those things she mentioned, grounding, breath work, sprinting, can all be somatic exercise. So we'll get into all of that. Yes, I heard about it, that those exercises are for trauma release, but never practiced it yet. Awesome. Okay, so that's kind of the quick cheat sheet answer right there, is that it has to do with releasing trauma that is stored in our bodies. So, hey, y'all, check it out. I got to shout out Maria. For those who don't know who Maria G is, this is my mom, y'all. She's on live. Yay. We were just chatting about some of this deep stuff yesterday, and I told her that tonight's masterclass is going to be all about what we were talking about. So I know she's geeked and ready to learn along with all of you. So happy you're here, Mom. Yay. Bronson says, hi, Mom. Awesome. Okay, so let's dive into the content tonight. First things first, let me get this out of the way. And I think my mother would probably disagree with me when I say I'm not an expert on somatic exercise, somatic training, all the different words you can use for it. But yeah, she would probably think I am, but I'm not. I am not a practitioner who is trained in taking you through somatic exercise or movement. But I have been through it personally myself with in-person practitioners and virtually, and I have experienced the power of what it can do. So I will be speaking from my own experience, and what I hope tonight's masterclass is for you all is I'm hoping to give you a opening or an introduction to what this whole thing is and the many different modalities that is encompassed in somatic training, to give you just a taste so that you can then go and hopefully explore more on your own and find some somatic modalities and practitioners who may be right for you and your needs, because it is very individual. There's a million different ways you can go. There's so many rabbit holes you can go down to experience this, and there's no right or wrong one. So I will give you kind of the foundation here and some breadcrumbs, and then do with it what you will. Hopefully this will inspire you to dig deeper and do some of this work. So without further ado, as I like to do at the beginning of these master classes, especially when we're talking about something that is not as familiar to you all, I like to start by defining our terms. Okay, so the term somatic means of or relating to the living body. Of or relating to the living body. That is very, very broad, very general definition, right? Anything relating to the living body. Wow, okay, that doesn't really tell you much, does it? It's used in medical terminology. For example, somatic cell or somatic nervous system, somatic disorder, somatic pain. So relating to the body. The term soma, the start of somatic, means the body as perceived from within. And to me, that's really getting a little bit more into the crux of what we're talking about when we're talking about somatic experiences. The body as perceived from within. So, as you might imagine, when you hear something like that, somatic exercise is not like the kind of exercise you do when you go to the gym and you look in the mirror and you're lifting a weight and you're looking at your body externally and you're trying to make your body do things externally. If you remember, maybe it was a month or two ago, I did a masterclass on what could be the secret to better results. And then ironically, the title of tonight's masterclass, I decided to call the missing link to your results, but they're connected in a way. In that masterclass, I was talking about proprioception, which is this concept of knowing where our body is in space. And that is not something you create by looking in the mirror and trying to physically see where your body is in space. It's a perception of where your body is in space without having to rely on the external. So in many ways, that proprioception topic that we discussed is very similar and can be different from somatic. But that kind of gives you an idea of this concept of where my body is in space, of perceiving my body or perceiving what's going on in my body. So these words, soma and somatic, they've become buzzwords. They're popping up all over the place, as some of the ladies mentioned in the group. Oh, I'm seeing this on my social media feeds. I'm getting all these articles. I'm starting to see these things. I don't know what it means though, right? So you may have heard of somatic yoga, somatic stretching, somatic exercise. There's an ad I get every time I pull up TikTok for somatic workouts, somatic therapy, somatic healing. Those are two of the bigger kind of umbrella terms. Somatic education, somatic psychology. So as you might imagine, you could add this word somatic, of or relating to the living body, in front of all of these different genres, all of these different professions. And it's really more about the way of going about that particular practice in a somatic way that makes it somatic. So basically, they can be used to describe a variety of forms of movement, healing modalities, and whatnot. So pretty much any type of movement or therapy that involves paying attention to your internal physical sensations and experiences can correctly be described as somatic. And I just pulled that statement from somaticmovementcenter.com if you want some more info on this. As a matter of fact, when I am done with tonight's masterclass, I will add into the description in the YouTube all of these links where I pulled information, so you all can go there and explore to get some more information. And anything else I mentioned, I'll probably mention some books that I've recommended on previous masterclasses, and things of that nature. I'll make sure all of that is in the video description for you to check out later. All right, so any type of movement or therapy that involves paying attention to your internal physical sensations and experiences can be described as somatic. A somatic movement is a movement that is practiced consciously with the intention of focusing on your internal experience of the movement rather than the external appearance or the end result of the movement. So as Cynthia, I think it was Cynthia, mentioned incorporating this into her lifting protocol. That might have been somebody else. Let's see. Dana said that. Okay, so if you think about it, the way you go about your weight training could be somatic. Many times it's not, because we are so focused on, am I doing the movement right? I need to make sure that these muscles are activated. I need to make sure that I look this way. I need to check the video, and we're in our head. But the way I liked, kind of the simple way of explaining somatics, is getting out of our head and into our body and recognizing from the internal state the way that our body is feeling. So it's very much connected to that proprioception concept, as I mentioned. So that in a way, you can make your personal training, your weightlifting, your weight training, you can make it more somatic in nature by being intentional and connecting with how your body is feeling in each moment, rather than all the technical things about trying to intellectually think your way through it. And this is where the healing and the releasing of trauma, somatic experiencing and somatic movements and somatic practices have become really powerful for allowing the emotions that are trapped in your body to be released. So if you've ever noticed that you've taken a yoga class or a stretch class or any kind of exercise class, really, or you've gotten a massage or you've done some work with a PT, and you realize that whether through the physical manipulation of your body from a physical therapist or a massage therapist or personal trainer, or yourself in an exercise class, particularly a lot of the time, it can happen in a yoga class because you're incorporating breath work and movement. And truly, in my opinion, if you're doing yoga right, you are doing it somatically. It shouldn't be about what you look like and what somebody else in the class looks like, and thinking about how much more flexible can I be than somebody else, or any of that. That's all intellectual. That's all up here. It's thought. But when we get out of that, and that's really what yoga is meant to be, is this concept of getting out of your head and into your body and being present in your body, which I love. If you've ever heard of COACHNAT Masterclass before, I'm always talking about the key to overcoming emotional eating, overcoming binge eating, overcoming disordered eating, you name it. And this is why I say, is this the missing link to your results? The key is through the emotions, not avoiding the emotions by turning to food, which is what we just talked about on our coffee chat with myself and Coach Bronson on Sunday. That is a great precursor to this masterclass. And if you didn't get to see that yet, you could check it out after, and it directly correlates. But there we were talking about emotional eating and how it's actually not emotional, it's actually avoidance of emotion. So if you find yourself going to food in times of high stress, worry, anxiety, anger, frustration, any heightened emotion, sadness, and we talk about being with those emotions, somatics is a really powerful way of helping you learn to basically regulate your nervous system. Essentially, what it's all about is taking you out of the survival mode, the fight, flight, or freeze mode, which is heightened stress state where your body goes into high alert and needs to be prepared for predators, and then taking it into the parasympathetic state, which is the rest and digest, the calm, the all is well in our world. Many times when we've been through any trauma, even the smallest trauma, you can consider traffic being trauma, a fender bender, car accident being trauma. These small things in our lives that we may not look at as big, massive traumatic events. Trauma can be all kinds of different things. It's anything that puts us into this survival, stressed sympathetic state, fight, flight, freeze. And then those emotions, a lot of the time, many of us have been living in this state for the longest time. We don't know another way to be. And we don't give ourselves on a regular basis that time to come down into the parasympathetic. So we're existing up here in the high stress. Your body is still in that high stress. So the trauma that you received from whatever that traumatic experience was, even if it was a small thing, it's trapped. That energy is trapped in your body and it needs to come out. So I've talked about many times before, a simple practice I like to do in my morning meditations or evening is a body scan, a simple body scan. Sitting and being, I like to put on some meditation music, kind of drowns out any of the white noise around that might take my distraction away. And I just sit with myself. Sometimes when you get into the habit of doing this regularly, the emotions that are there under the surface that we may not notice if we're staying busy all the time naturally bubble up to the surface. Many times, if you haven't practiced this consistently or for a while or ever had a practice doing this, those emotions don't even show up. You can get quiet for 5, 10, 15 minutes trying to meditate, and you never become present to any of the emotions that you're experiencing because you're not used to allowing them to come up. You're used to pushing them down. What do we do when we eat? Pushing, stuffing the emotions down. So body scan is a great way to get out of your head and into your body. I've talked about this before, starting at the top of your head, and all you're doing, maybe with your eyes closed, with your music on in a comfortable spot, you just start to notice the sensations of your body. And the body scan helps because if you are just trying to assess your entire body all at once, maybe you won't connect to anything. But if you think about, okay, what is the top of my head? Am I noticing anything on the top of my head? Do I notice anything around my eyes? Sometimes you're going to feel pressure or tension, in your sinus cavities, or a headache, right here above your eyebrows or in your temples. Start to just notice any physical sensation, actual physiological sensations that you're noticing as you're sitting there and just being with your body. Go all the way down your body, shoulders, clavicle, breasts, chest, abdomen, all the way down your arms, all the way into your fingertips, all the way down your legs and through your toes. You can go back up. Just doing that is a great way to start some meditation because it just gets you out of whatever the swimming thoughts are in your head that are trying to take over all the time. It gets you out of thinking and into feeling is basically what it's doing. It's getting you into feeling the physical sensations. And a lot of the time, that then opens you up to receiving, becoming present to the emotional feelings that are also present. So let's see, let's get back into this. Yep. So if you just focus your attention completely on what you're feeling in your physical body as you're moving, then the movement is somatic. So that's what makes something a somatic movement or exercise. Another defining quality of somatic movement is that it's exploratory. So even if you're practicing somatic movement with the intention of releasing muscle tension, relieving pain, improving your posture, letting go of stress, releasing trauma, whatever it might be, you still need to be focused on exploring the internal experience of the movement rather than on whatever the end result is that you're after, right? If you're sitting there thinking about relieving trauma and all you can think of is the trauma that you've experienced and you're trying to release it and I hope I can release it and you're focusing on the trauma or you're focusing on that thing, just like if all you're doing is focusing on this exercise is going to help me build muscle and I'm thinking about building muscle or I'm thinking about losing body fat, if you're going into a yoga or a Pilates class, you could go into that class thinking about what it's going to do for your waistline. And then that movement that could be very somatic is now not a somatic movement. So the exercises themselves, there's all kinds of stuff out there for free now on YouTube and TikTok and all over. Do these somatic exercises, release trauma. You could do those exercises and still not get the trauma release because you're not being present and focusing on the internal experience. So the exercises themselves are not magic. I do remember when I went through this on retreat, I don't even know if I have this in my notes, but one of the most powerful ones that I experienced was something called tremors or tremoring or trembling. If you ever notice, children, when they get upset, let's say you're holding them after a traumatic experience, they're shivering, they're tremoring, they're trembling. It's a way of releasing the emotions through the body, processing through the body. And it's getting that trauma out of the body. As adults, we have learned to blunt those kinds of responses. So if you notice now, most of you probably do not naturally begin to shake or tremble when you're experiencing stress. And if you do, especially if you're in public space at work or somewhere, you're probably going to stop yourself from doing it. Well, this was a really powerful experience that I had on retreat with practitioner in person. And I was very skeptical. I didn't think anything was going to happen for me. I thought, oh, come on, they're doing this. Like, this is not an involuntary movement. We basically went through some simple body weight exercises that is like, just like if you were weightlifting, right? We did some like deadlift movements, squats, things to basically pre-exhaust our muscles. So if you want to, let's say you do want to incorporate somatic experiencing or somatic exercise to your lifting routine, what you could do at the very end of your training session, be very powerful to do it at the end because you'd be releasing all this pent up tension. And what are we doing when we're lifting weights? We're actually creating tension. Time under tension is very important to build the muscle. So after a training session, you can have a lot of tension in your body. So immediately after your training session, maybe even more powerfully, do it in the sauna if you have access to that. Or as you go, I love to do stretches after my training sessions. When I'm tight on time and I'm not doing that, I definitely feel it locked up in my body for a lot longer, a whole week or 2 weeks until I go get a massage or do some foam rolling. And this is another way that these recovery practices like foam rolling, which is self-myofascial release, a form of massage, sauna, stretching, can be very powerful in general, even if we don't have that somatic focus while we're doing it. You add on that somatic focus, and now it can become a very healing practice. In addition to really helping you recover from your training, it can help your body recover from trauma and help your mind recover from trauma as well. So, or your psyche rather. So the tremors or trembling, for example, we would do a pre-exhaustive exercise and just to get kind of tired. And then we lay down on the floor. The way we did it, we laid down on the floor. We had our feet up at 90 degrees or had our feet on the floor, but our knees up to stabilize us. And we did some breathing and then just kind of let ourselves, let our legs fall open, right? So your knees are up, feet on the ground, body on the ground. Knees are up, you kind of let your knees fall open a little bit. And then just breathing, and we're eyes closed. We did it in the dark. All of a sudden, one leg might start shaking. The other leg might start shaking. Some people's entire bodies were convulsing. Just depending on how much you have going on inside that needs to be let out, you can experience these tremors. And the end result on the other side of it can be incredibly releasing in terms of you might cry, you might scream. There were all kinds of things happening in that space. This is why these kinds of actual trauma release therapy, that particular one is a form of TRE, trauma release exercise. Make sure that I'm saying that correctly. But it's TRE. And that's an actual certified, trademarked term. Where is it? Yes, TRE. Oops. I'll put this channel down for you all to check that out too. But it's basically a trauma release therapy kind of exercise. That kind of thing is really important to do with a practitioner because you never know what could happen, and you want to have support in that space by a trained professional who knows how to handle the situation. I will say, like I said, I was skeptical, and then sure enough, all the shaking, it was powerful. And at the end, you just lay there feeling this catharsis, this like it moved through me and the tears came, and sometimes you get visions. It's just, it can be incredible. And that's just one example of a type of actual trauma release therapy modality of doing somatic work. So let's see. There are some schools that actually teach this, somatic movement education. It's funny, when I started doing some research on this for you all, I came across some terms that were very familiar to me, and I did not remember them in depth, but the Feldenkrais method is one of the pioneers in this work, and the Alexander technique. I believe I studied that in college in my dance classes. I was telling Bronson the other day, I couldn't believe, I was like, I know these words. Why do I know these terms? I'm pretty sure I studied it in dance in college. But somatic education, it was a term coined by Thomas Hanna, who was a student of the Feldenkrais method. So I will, as I mentioned, include these terms in the description so you can actually research it for yourself and learn more about it if you want to get educated in it. Somatic experiencing, which I kind of look at as like the umbrella term over all of it. It's a body-oriented modality that helps heal trauma and other stress disorders. That was developed by Peter Levine, PhD. And it's a result of multidisciplinary study of stress physiology, psychology, biology, neuroscience, indigenous healing practices, and medical biophysics. Wow. So combines all of that.
Can I summarize that one?
Sure, go for it.
That's what you did help me with one time. When you're feeling stressed about something, feel where are you feeling it?
Yes, exactly. Yes, I did. I kind of guided you through it.
We were on a walk on a park, and I was feeling really weird, and you're like, where are you feeling it?
What sensations are you noticing in your body? Yeah, exactly. That's what I was just talking about, the body scan as a great first step to this. Yeah. You don't need any actual exercises or movements to do, but just sitting and scanning your body for what you're feeling. Yeah, that was one. Another one that we did in the training camp for the soul, I've mentioned to you all many times before. That's the retreat. That's the 90-day program I went through, and then the retreat I went to in person where I got to experience trauma release therapy. But they did a lot of guiding us through the where do you find, if you cannot identify the emotion, where are you feeling it in your body? And then asking us to describe it very detailed. So this is kind of a different, it's a little different than the body scan. The body scan is a little simpler, but it's kind of taking it the next step. When you do identify, oh, I am feeling something in my body. I feel a tightness in my chest. Okay, what does it feel like? Describe it in detail. Describe it with practical words. So what color would it be? What shape would it be? If it had a shape, if it had a size, what would be the size of it? So you're describing it as if you were looking at something in your physical space and describing the shape and the color and the size and all of those things. And a lot of the time that can then break open and help you understand what that actual emotion is that you're feeling. So yeah, somatic experiencing helps us release, recover, become more resilient, become more aware. It's a body-oriented therapeutic model, and it's applied in all different professions. As I mentioned, psychotherapy, medicine, coaching, teaching, physical therapy. So a little bit about the science behind this. So trauma can begin as an acute stress from a perceived life threat, like life-threatening event. So like a car accident, or a fire, or something, anything that's kind of life-threatening. Or it can be chronic stress, which most of the time in today's world, we're experiencing this trauma in our bodies from this chronic stressed state, as I mentioned earlier. So it can happen from emotional abuse, neglect, physical or sexual assault, war, things going on around us in the world that are not even happening to us, but happening to others. A lot of people, right? Through the pandemic and all of the world wars and all of the things that we see on the news. One of the reasons why we don't watch the news over here. We don't read news articles. I shield myself from that stuff. But basically, the somatic experiencing approach facilitates the completion of self-protective motor responses and the release of thwarted survival energy that is bound in the body, thus addressing the root cause of trauma symptoms. It's approached by gently guiding people through developing increasing tolerance for difficult bodily sensations and suppressed emotions. That is from Somatic Experiencing International or traumahealing.org. But listen to this part again. And for those who watched our coffee chat, you may hear something familiar. Gently guiding, developing increased tolerance for difficult bodily sensations and suppressed emotions. Ding, 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 ding. Exactly what we were talking about on Sunday. The reason we are going to food or any other vice instead of dealing with our emotions is that we do not have a tolerance for dealing with our emotions because we've been taught throughout our entire lives not to deal with emotions. It's not something that gets taught anywhere to any of us growing up. It doesn't get taught in school, doesn't get taught by our parents because they were never taught by their parents, especially not boomers and Gen X. Maybe a little bit of millennials got some of this. Gen Z is probably getting a little bit, hopefully, or at least discovering it out in the world now that it's something that we're becoming aware of. But it wasn't something we were taught. We were all taught to soothe ourselves with food or other things. So essentially, it's a way of learning to experience your emotions without fear and self-soothe with healthy practices rather than turning to things outside of ourselves to give us comfort, which, as y'all know, it doesn't really give you any comfort at all. It's just an avoidance of the real problem. It's an avoidance of the emotion. It's a procrastination. And then that issue is still there afterwards, and usually with a world of hurt on top of it from the food we shoved down. So this gets into, I was going to do a whole different masterclass on this, but maybe not. Because I think next week I want to talk about the why. I realize I don't think I've ever done a masterclass that actually gets into developing that deeper level of why, finding your why. So next week we'll get into that. But I'm going to drop this little breadcrumb here. And if this is something you want to hear more about, we can talk about this one in more detail in a future masterclass. But it is called polyvagal theory. These days, another buzzword is the vagus nerve. If you've heard of the vagus nerve, it's not spelled like Las Vegas. It's spelled differently, V-A-G-U-S, the vagus nerve. It's the gut-brain connection. If you've heard of the gut-brain, it's the nerve that goes from the gut to the brain, and it connects all of our body systems, basically. So polyvagal theory emphasizes the role of the autonomic nervous system. So this is the nervous system we're talking about, the fight, flight, freeze, the parasympathetic to sympathetic. The autonomic nervous system is controlling all of that, especially the vagus nerve. So it emphasizes the role that the nervous system plays in regulating our health and behavior. So the theory describes the physiological, psychological states which underlie our daily behavior, as well as challenges related to our wellness and mental health. By applying polyvagal theory to our personal lives, as well as disciplines, so once again, like somatic experiencing, which polyvagal theory is basically another version of, or vagal toning, vagal therapy. It's yet another somatic type of work. It's applied in medicine, education, management, psychology, all of these different areas as well. So I can share a little bit more about polyvagal theory. There's exercises you can do for vagal tone, basically improving the toning of your vagus nerve, so that when you think about the concept of poor gut health, a lot of it has to do with not just what we're eating, but how we eat. Meaning a lot of the time we are not eating in a rest and digest state of being. We are in this sympathetic state. And so a lot of the basics of improving your digestion, improving gut health, can come down to simply eating more slowly, mindfully and taking yourself not distracted, taking yourself out of whatever else you're doing to focus on the food. So essentially it's somatic eating, I guess, is the way you can think of it. I should totally write a book called Somatic Eating. Oh my gosh. New ideas always popping up. But yeah, I could totally do some stuff on what is somatic eating. That's basically what it would be, is somatic eating. How are you paying attention to the internal state of your body when you're eating? Most of us, if we would just calm ourselves, learn to calm ourselves, then the gut-brain connection will be cleaned up or toned. The vagus nerve can be toned, and then we can learn to self-regulate, is basically what all of this is self-regulation, processing, releasing emotion. And it's something that we need to be doing on a regular basis. It's not like go to a retreat one time, do it, and you're done. Because that stress and that survival instinct and that fight, flight, freeze response can come up again and again and again, and we can hold this tension. And so we need to release it. So it would be really powerful. Do a little research. Gosh, you type in somatic exercise into your Google or your YouTube search, and you will get a ton of resources, a ton of free exercises you can try, guided movement workshops, just everything for free for 5 minutes on a YouTube video. So I would love to hear after this masterclass, if you found some of this stuff and you go play with it, what happens for you? Do you notice changes? What do you notice happening in your body, in your mind, in your state of being, with the habits you're trying to change around food, around fitness? Do you notice better recovery from your workouts? Do you notice a calm demeanor? Do you notice that you are less snippy with your loved ones? It could be a powerful, when I say that this could be the missing link to your results, when we talk about weight loss, which is a big thing we talk about here, right? Fat loss. I always talk about the power of stress and sleep, and how when we're not sleeping and when we're stressed, our body holds on to the body fat. Because once again, we are in a state of heightened alertness. Our body is in survival mode. Do you think it's going to let go of body fat when it's in survival mode? If it thinks its life is threatened, it's actually going to hold on to everything. All optimized, optimal bodily functions will cease. So if you notice constipation, it's a blockage. It's really cool, super fascinating how many of our physiological symptoms can be abated when we deal with the energetic side, the emotional side of things. So that was just a very quick overview of what somatic training is, or could be considered, and particularly as it relates to trauma release and emotional release. Does anybody have any questions, right now, or about, where you want to get started with this, or anything like that? As I said, it's a pretty easy Google search find right now. And if you have particular ailments or particular things that you're trying to heal, if you Google search somatic work for Alzheimer's, somatic movement or somatic exercise, or for somatic training for gut health, somatic training for enter whatever it is, you will get a whole plethora of options to start with. I would love to hear your experiences. So please go geek out more on this and then come back and let me know. Drop a comment on the YouTube video or drop into the Facebook group and let us know what you've tried and how it's impacted you. And if you want to know more about it, I'd be happy to bring on an expert to go a lot deeper into it. But what we would need to do is pick somebody in a very particular niche because, as I mentioned, somatics is a very, very general term and it can encompass pretty much everything. I will reach out to my friend who runs Training Camp for the Soul. I've been meaning to interview her or have her on a live. And I've never had anybody join me for these. So it might be kind of cool to do some guest speakers, guest experts on particular topics. So if you have a guest expert you'd like to see me bring on, or a particular topic you'd like me to have an expert join me to talk more in depth about, including this one, please let me know. Drop it in the comments. I'd be happy to do so. Reach out to my networks and pull some people in so you all can get a deeper education on this stuff. But that's all I really have for you tonight. It was a quicker one this evening, as I was just kind of doing the tiptoe into the water on this stuff. But in the meantime, keep crushing it. Start incorporating some somatic work into your world. Oh, I should mention before I hop off the books that I always mention when we talk about things related to this, and that is The Body Keeps the Score by Bessel van der Kolk, which I will also put all of these in the description as well. The Body Keeps the Score, really incredible book. How to Do the Work by Nicole LaPera. And, oh, what was the other one I wanted to mention? Did I write it down? I don't know that I did. I'll find it and make sure I put it in the notes. All right, that's all I have for you tonight. Go make it a great week and holler at me in the Facebook group. And if you struggle with your why, I'm going to drop a post in the Facebook group later this week so I can get some of your experiences, so I can teach next week's masterclass as kind of like a workshop. So I'll be asking more about where you struggle to identify your why, so we can help you work through that and get to that deeper why that you can keep in front of your face every day so you are much more likely to reach your goals. All right. Love y'all. Have a wonderful week. And I'll see you next Monday. Peace out.